Everyone. You ready?
No. Yes.
I'm on the edge of my seat, although I'm not.
Get on with it.
I can't when he's still giggling away.
Okay.
You're not allowed to have fun. Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Simon of Savage Reads, and today I am back with my mum.
Hello.
For the third, I was going to say of our trilogy, but there's going to be another trilogy. The first trilogy of our thoughts on the first half. No, hang on.
Yeah, the first half.
Okay, the first half of the
right.
winners of the Women's Prize for Fiction that
12.
we hadn't read before, and we're doing them all in order. Yeah. There's 2 videos we've previously done. They're down below. For those of you who are new, gets longer every intro, this one. For those of you who are new, me and my mum read the long list together. We've been fans of the Women's Prize for years. I've read the long list for the last good few years, and mum joined me last year, and we're going to be doing it again this year. We're going to talk about books 9 to 12?
7.
No. 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 9 to 12.
Oh, yeah, because we've done 8.
Yeah, we've done 8.
I was thinking we've done 6.
That would be the easiest way to
Sorry.
thought of it as well. We have done 8. I had to count backwards from 12. This is why we like books and not numbers. Anyway, we're going to talk about these books in order of their release and what we thought about them. And first up is... Oh, it's got a hair in it. Is Andrea Levy's Small Island. It was the winner. Every decade they do a best of so far. Right. And this was the first winner.
Oh, was it?
Andrea Levy beat all of the other books that we've talked about in this video down below. This book I love. I read it years ago, but I still think of it. This is all about Hortense, who comes over to the UK to see her husband, who has left Jamaica to come and fight for the British Empire, and he comes over and it's totally different from what he expects because you actually get his viewpoint as the book goes on. Hortense is kind of initially the main narrator, but he's living in the house of Queenie, who is a landlady who's got a lot of people in her house and has a secret going on. Is that fair enough to say?
Yes.
I feel like I almost want to say more, but I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, I think you've got to be really careful.
Yeah, because this book is one of those books that, as the narrators tell you their tales that all interweave with each other, you get this. You get a lot of there's revelations. There's a lot of secrets, but also you're just. It also is a book about how people from such different lives who are forced together, and that's actually a theme in quite a lot of the Women's Prize winners. How they have to cope and how they have to get on, even if they might not want to get on.
Right.
Hortense, in particular, is a voice I don't think you will ever forget. I think she's genius, and I think Andrea Levy's just writing is beautiful. Mum, did you like this book?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. You can probably tell by the expression on my face. I'd concur with all of that, and I think for me it was I felt. I mean, I don't. We do this, don't we? We trick ourselves that we're not prejudiced, that we're very well informed about things. And I was so shocked when I read this because I hadn't really understood the involvement, in the army of these men.
Yeah.
And it was a revelation, and also what was happening on British soil. But
also what I think is shocking is that these men have come to fight from Jamaica, and it's how they are treated once they are here, even though they are fighting alongside.
It's
horrific.
It is horrific, and it's I read it thinking, thank goodness this story is being told.
Yeah.
But equally very angry that it's kind of been buried.
But what I think is incredible about Andrea Levy's writing with this book is that there is an anger throughout it, but I think she uses that anger in a very warm way through Queenie, in the fact that she creates this character who goes against what is the perception of most of society at the time, because otherwise it could become an angry and quite... There's a point with anger where I think it can be really powerful, like in this book, if you use it well and you see all sides of different perspectives.
Well, you don't want moralising and preaching, and that's certainly not what's happening here.
I think what she's doing is...
She's opening your eyes.
Yes, I almost said educated, and I don't like that word. But she's sort of...
It's the difference between fiction and non-fiction.
Yes.
is something to do with that.
Well, I think this book is full of heart.
Yeah,
it is just
absolutely.
constantly full of heart. She loves all of her characters so much, which makes you love them, even though they are. I mean, Hortense. Again, I'm going to keep mentioning Hortense because I do think she's one of my favourite characters in fiction. She's quite flinty, I want to say.
Yeah,
she's a bit,
but the other thing for me is the dignity. There's an awful lot of human dignity in this book. You know, the people who history has, ignored.
Yes.
And giving them a voice, but also showing how, as human beings, we're all not the same, but we're all faced with the same questions, the same dilemmas, the same.
We're all flawed.
We are all deeply flawed. Yes.
So that's what I think is clever. She shows where we unite and where we have flaws, and where it's also a book that kind of has a conversation with itself, looking at different sides of it, because none of the characters think, and as a reader, like you say, I like to think I'm not a prejudiced person. We all have prejudices that we don't know about until we have to face them, or things that we learn about. But I think she acknowledges the negative, but in a very clever way, because it's never at the fore, but yet the characters are always assessing it, but yet without it being calculated, or it just feels very natural.
It made me angry. Yeah, it made me.
I would say that much of it made me angry, and then that much of it just made me completely hopeful and joyous.
Really, I there was a strong reaction. I had a very strong reaction to it.
She is a phenomenal writer, absolutely phenomenal writer. So there's that one. We both like that one a lot.
Loved it.
That's one of my favourite books, possibly of all time.
Yeah.
I think. Then we have okay, so I've talked about this quite a lot on this channel already. We need to talk about Kevin. We do need to talk about Kevin by Lionel Shriver. Now, I will say that my concern with this book is not about the book subject matter, which I think is a tricky subject and is one that is dealt with quite well in this novel, I think. But I have real problems with what the author has said since this book has come out, and I find that problematic. And there's we could have a whole conversation for probably about 2 hours about whether it should matter what an author thinks or not versus their work. I do think it sort of matters, because if that's the way the person thinks, it's probably going to be subconsciously in their work. It's just what I think, and I'm happy to be shouted down about it and debate it. So I went into this book already with a slight, and I was a bit like, do I even want to read it? Yeah, I would say, not quite as big as the one that Lionel's got, but so I was a bit, but I acknowledge that. I started it. We should say what it's about. It's about a woman who is writing letters to her husband. Her son is in prison. He's done something awful. I think it's fair enough to say people know what he's done, don't they? Or should we leave it?
I don't know. I'd leave it just in case, because actually that's kind of. It's
not the big reveal, because there's a really big twist at the end, which I thought was quite clever.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly. Yeah. But do you want to talk about what you thought about it? Because you read
because I read it. I didn't know anything about her, because
she's only done it in the last few years.
It was this novel appeared. People were talking about it. Clearly, as you say, the subject matter was certainly a very unusual thing to write about at the time, and I read it and I just could not put it down. I thought it, and I still feel like I haven't really read it since, but it was unput downable. I was just
you and. What did you do, Louise?
I can't repeat that. I don't quite know what I was doing.
I can't
racing through it.
I'm going to be waiting for some when we go on holiday together. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait. God. Oh, look, she's out on the deck chair, roaring again. Sorry.
It's quite all right. Are you apologising to me or the viewers?
Everyone. Just everyone.
And I thought, one of the things that I thought was amazing about this book was the frankness with which the mother was describing her feelings for her children. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Am I able to say a bit more?
Yeah.
She just struggled to relate to him, didn't she?
It wasn't what she expected.
No.
But also when they go into it, they're not sure if they really want to do it, but they feel it's almost like that thing of, we should.
So her wrestling with motherhood and with her relationship with her children, I thought was absolutely fascinating, and yeah, and like you say, there are a couple actually of big twists in this story. Breathtaking ones if you know nothing. So I think it must be very different approaching the novel now.
I think when we've talked about it in other books where there was a very fine balance, I think, between voyeuristic and writing about these subject matters sensitively, deftly, and occasionally I found this book voyeuristic. I think she did some really nasty stuff with some of the characters and some of the situations that I didn't feel were necessary.
Okay.
I thought the situation was horrible enough without. And for me, I was like, I don't know, I just felt like she was I want to say over egging the pudding, but I mean...
Or was she just being brutally honest about how she felt?
I'll say actually after where I think particularly this went too far, because I don't want to give anything away for anyone watching it. But there was some stuff that she did towards the end that takes it to a whole new level that I thought was very clever, because she's very good at beginning to build that tension, because you know something... Awful things happen, but something worse is coming. But she does other things in the lead up that are horrible, but I just thought, why? Like that, there's just no need for that. And also it would have made the book shorter. I also found a very thin line between her being direct, honest, and the character, I mean, direct, honest, and frank, and occasionally whiny. And the whininess bothered me because it wasn't done in the way, it wasn't the way I would expect her to whine. That's not right, is it? This book's still making me think. But I don't have a problem with characters being cold. I don't have a problem with characters having different opinions from me. But I just felt there was a certain...
Did you feel she was making excuses?
No, oddly I didn't. But I think for me it was that there was almost this level that it goes to of enjoying how miserable it is. And I didn't enjoy that.
So a bit in self-indulgent.
Yes, I felt, and I felt overall the book actually itself became quite self-indulgent and a bit pretentious sometimes. But I do think in there is really good stuff. And I will say, I watched the film afterwards with Tilda Swinton, and that film is like have you seen it? It is incredible. And it's not often that I say for a film to the book, but I think they took all of the really good stuff out of this and made it condensed and did it that way. But yeah, I'm really torn on it. Like as a book, I think it does something quite different. It's unusual. I really like unreliable narrators, and this has all of that. But I think I couldn't stop thinking about what I know.
The creator.
Yeah. And that was really hard for me.
But I'm
going to be honest about that. I wouldn't see that there's a reason not to be honest. And I'm very torn because I have a signed copy, so I don't know what to do with it.
If you'd asked me 5 years ago, maybe slightly longer, I would have said, it was so powerful. So powerful at the time.
Well, also I think it's different. I think if you're a mum,
it
might be a different read. Or not even a mum, if you're a woman.
If you're a mum with a difficult child.
Let's move on swiftly to another book. This is On Beauty by Zadie Smith, the 11th winner. Now this I read, and it's the first book I ever read knowing of the prize, I think, and buying it because it had won.
Oh, okay.
So it was after the fact that it had won. And I didn't get it. And I think it's because I read it at the wrong time in my life. And I did say I was going to try and read it again. I just thought,
did you finish it?
Yes.
Okay.
Why?
No, I just wondered. I wasn't sure that you had, because I knew you didn't like it.
No, I did, because we're talking in like my mid-20s when I didn't have that many books. So if I had one, I would literally read it to the end because that's what I was going to do. And it's also slightly based...
When he was in his garret.
What's a garret?
What's a garret? Little room at the top of the house.
No, I meant when I was living in London. I was living in London, and I didn't have a blog or a tell or anything. So I used to like.
Didn't you watch Little Women?
I did, but
Where did Joe go to write? In a garret.
Oh, just the attic. All right, Louise, I didn't live and breathe Little Women as a child.
No, but I did.
Like some people. Anyway, let's all move on swiftly. We've still got 2 books to go. But it's also based on Howard's End.
Yeah, you see, I didn't realise that when I was reading it.
And I still don't know what Mum thought of it, because I purposely did that when she said, and I promise you I didn't check when I edited the video, I just got the beginning and the end off. What did you think of it?
I absolutely love it.
Go on.
I think it's brilliant. I'm going to hold it.
Yeah, you can.
And I love it because, well, it's a campus novel.
I don't like those.
And I don't normally like them. I'm you know, I often find them. I don't know. It's a pretentious world sometimes that's presented to me that I don't particularly want to be part of.
Can you give us a summation of what it's about? Because I realised I haven't. I've just gone on about how I didn't like it when I was in my 20s.
I'll try. So it's a description of a marriage between, I want to say, Howard and Kiki.
It is Howard.
So it takes place in London and also in New England. And the description of places, the descriptions of Hampstead Heath and things like that in it are fab, I think. There's this intellectual rivalry between these two men, but their families get caught up in it as well. And oh my goodness, it's so rich. It's so rich. So you've got, the children growing up and how that impacts on the parents. You've got children's changing and shifting perspectives of their parents as various things about Howard are revealed. Howard is a deeply flawed character, I think.
I think maybe I do need to reread it.
And in some ways, I kept making connections because I read this quite recently and also Larry's Party quite recently, and I kept making links between Howard and Larry in some ways. But also, I found some of the scenes in it just hilariously funny.
See, I think for me, the more you're talking about this, the more I think it was just on time. Because this is at a point where I was
Can I read
back
you a
into
bit?
reading.
Because that's why.
Of course you can.
I know I wouldn't normally do this, but there were bits in it. So Howard's at a college dinner.
She really loved this book.
I really, honestly, it's making me smile just think about it. And so there's this description of the entertainment at the college dinner. I mean, he's feeling pretty uncomfortable there anyway. There are two different kinds of glee club in this world. The first type sing barbershop favourites and Gershwin tunes. They swing gently, moving from side to side and sometimes clicking their fingers and winking. Howard could basically deal with this type. He'd got through occasions graced by glee clubs of that type. But these boys were not of that type. Swaying and clicking and winking were just how they got warmed up. Tonight, this glee club had chosen as their opener Pride in the Name of Love by U2, which they'd taken the trouble to transform into a samba.
She's off.
They swayed, they clicked, they winked. They did coordinated spins. They switched places with each other. They moved forward, they moved back, always retaining their formation. They smiled the kind of smile you might employ when trying to convince a lunatic to quit holding a gun to your mother's head. One of the boys, with his lungs, began to reproduce the bass line on the record. And now Howard could hold out no longer. He began to shudder, and making a choice between tears and noise, he chose tears. In a few seconds his face was soaked, his shoulders were rolling. The effort of not making noise was turning his face purple. One of the boys stepped out of his formation to do the moonwalk. Howard held a thick cotton serviette to his face. "Stop it," whispered Victoria and pinched his knee. "Everybody's looking." It surprised Howard that a girl so used to being looked at should hate so much this other kind of stare. Howard apologetically removed the handkerchief, but this had the effect of releasing the noise. A squealing laugh announced itself in the room. It drew the attention of Howard's own table and the 4 tables beside it. It even reached Monty's table, that's the name of his rival, where all the diners turned their heads, seeking but not yet able to locate the insolent disturbance. "What are you doing? Are you serious? Stop it!" Howard mimed incapacity. His squeal turned to a honk. "Excuse me," said a dour female professor on the table behind him, who he did not know. I don't know why. It's the word dour. "But you're being very rude." But Howard could not find a place to put his face. He could either turn to look at the glee club or turn his face to face his own dining companions, all of whom were now trying to disassociate themselves from him, leaning far back in their chairs, doggedly focusing on the stage. "Please," said Victoria urgently, "this isn't funny. You're actually embarrassing me." Howard turned to look at the glee club. He tried to think of unfunny things. Death, divorce, taxes, his father. But something about that fat guy's hand claps pushed Howard over the brink. He lurched from his chair, knocked it over, picked it up and escaped down the middle aisle. I mean, it's just
That's only one section.
I know.
I didn't get any of that when I read it in my 20s. Oh, she's off. She's crying.
I just think, and Howard's wife is such a fantastic character, and the relationships that she develops, and the way it builds to this, the denouement at the end, I just thought was, I
didn't get it.
And I really couldn't see why. I mean, I was almost off put by the fact that it was all happening in Wellington College. I don't know whether it exists or whether it's a fictional college in New England. And that did almost put me off, but I just, I think it's, oh gosh, the rivalries,
She likes it.
I really,
She really likes it. I think I must have read it the wrong
my
time.
case.
But I think, no, for me as well, I think it is timing, and it's also where you are in your reading life. Don't feel like in my mid-20s, I was only getting back into reading after quite a long time not. So maybe that was just too much of something when I wasn't ready to get to that step.
Yeah.
It was quite a leap from going from Rebecca by Daphne du Barry and Miss Marple to something like that. So, yes, that one. And then finally, for the first half of the winners, and interestingly, the book which won the second decade's best of the Women's Prize is Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is one of, spoiler alert, one of my all-time favourite books. I think this is incredible. It's set in the 1960s, I want to say, yes, in Nigeria, and it's around the Biafra War. The characters are based in Lagos, and this is a book that's about twin sisters and the people around them, and how, due to the war, some of them are thrown together and some of them are thrown apart. And this is a really interesting book. We were talking about this a bit before, in the fact that I think I need to reread this, because what's happened in the years since I've read it is it's just become this hallowed book that I love. There are certain scenes I can remember. I was saying to Mum, there's a scene as they are trying to get on a plane at one point, but I won't spoil why, that I can remember. And when I think about it, it makes me anxious because I can remember how those characters were feeling. I can remember. But also, this is a book where it expanded my mind, and I had no idea about the Biafra War. I didn't know very much about Nigeria's history, but also I've realised since that I really like books from and set in Nigeria. There was something in the narration, something in the writing that really, really, I think of Stay With Me by Obama Adebayo. I think of, other books by Chimamanda, Ian Braithwaite. There is just something, and I want to read a lot more Nigerian fiction this year. Mum, what do you think?
No, I would agree with that. I read it a long time ago. I think it is an epic, and I think it's a very generous book. There's a warmth to it, which,
in hiring
the
circles,
subject matter,
exactly,
is phenomenal.
Very actually.
Yes.
Very like Small Island.
Yeah, I would say so.
And there's a generosity to it, I think, as well.
And again, one of the reasons I loved it was because it was about, like you, a world of, again, which I was very, very ignorant about. And this would always be one of my defences of, not that you have to defend fiction, but sometimes I think you learn more about a place and a situation by reading a fictionalised account.
I think...
Because of the empathy.
Yes, I was going to say, I think it's the empathy, I think it is the emotion, and I think it's the characters. When you get to know characters as opposed to when you see names in academic text or in non-fiction, narrative non-fiction is a whole different thing, like with Truman Capote or whatever, but I think there is something so powerful in fiction. And it was one of those books that I think, again, I must have read this, probably actually not far after Zadie Smith, because they were within a year of each other. And I think maybe I was just that little bit further in reading, but also this book opened my mind and took me literally to those places with those people in a way that I don't think I'd experienced in fiction before.
It's the sort of book that makes you want to get a map out.
But not just that, I think...
And look at, where because there's quite a lot of movement, isn't there, from what I remember, from one place to another and things like that. It makes you want to then go and find out much more about that moment in time. Yes,
I think that is the bit as well. It's not just that, for me, it wasn't just that, it was wanting to learn more about that and what it had meant.
Lighting a fuse.
And I think this book did that in all sorts of ways, but also, again, like I said, because I just felt that Chimamanda we're on first name terms, she just... I'd not experienced the way into which a world that's so different from anything I'd experienced could be so in the forefront of my mind and so real and vivid. And I think that's why this is such an amazing... And, you know, this is a book that I know so many people adore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the final one of this part of the first half of the women's. We've now got... I'm a little bit smug. I've got 2 to read.
I think I've got 6.
So it has reversed, because I don't think I've got many to read the first lot. Oh, you've got some absolute treats
I'm really
ahead.
looking forward to it. I have to say, you know, the experience of reading or rereading or reminding myself about the first 12, I think, you know, I love the Women's Prize for what it stands for, but I also think they pick, you know, the winners are fabulous.
Well, the ones
what fantastic choices.
It's been a real treat, and also it's just really nice. We were talking about this yesterday. It's really nice that we're reading the same books, but not necessarily at the same time. But it is kind of like a book club.
But also normally when we you know chat on the phone or whatever, we talk about what you're reading, what you think, blah, blah. And now we're not allowed. You know, with these books, I don't want to talk about what I think until
so we actually have to ask each other how we are.
So I know. But it's really I've really enjoyed doing these because we're sitting down and actually, you know, I've got all that pent up. Like I couldn't wait to talk about On Beauty.
And it's interesting because that's made me rethink that one.
I would really champion this book.
What's your favourite out of the 12 so far?
Oh my goodness, I don't think that's a fair question.
Well, I'm not answering either.
No,
I just thought I'd throw it out there
because
I don't think I can have one because
I'm not very good at favourites of anything because it depends on the mood. It depends on the time of it. My first child.
Sounds like favourite.
You make all your mistakes on your first child. You do realise that, don't you?
What? Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed these videos so far. We'll be back with more in the future. By the time this goes live, it probably won't be that far away. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm so... Oh, she doesn't care! Oh, I've gone really, really slouchy. Who do I think I am? Just slouching around. Sorry about that, everybody. Off she goes. Copying me again. So first it's libraries, then it's troughs in the garden, and now it's this.
Stop it!